Hello, Dino here from Skylabs. I'm going to give you a quick overview of the now, the next and the wondrous future of OOH. That's out of home, or otherwise billboards if you didn't know. And this was actually from the World Out of Home Organisation Congress in Toronto just last week. I am now back. I am now in London, so I'm not in glamorous Toronto as you can see, but hopefully I can give you an overview of the presentation and give you a bit of a taste. So who am I if you don't know? I work for Skylabs. Here's me with a nice shirt on in the brand new Sky Innovation Centre. I am a nerd. I like coding. I've previously been a coder. I like electronics, Arduinos, all that sort of thing. I'm also a creative. I trained as a designer. I've been creative director of several marketing agencies and done pretty much everything in between, from animation to video to 3D to music. Love all that sort of stuff. Love a good shirt. I also tend to call bullshit on stuff, so apologies for the swear word. However, you know, because I can not only do the things, I'm intrigued by everything. I tend to have an opinion on it, and you'll hear a few of those. Hopefully they'll be useful. I tend to be quite practical about things. If you're from the out-of-home world, you might have known the Women's Aid advert a couple of years ago, the Look at Me that won Cannes Gold and all those sorts of things. So I was part of that team. That was from WCRS in London. Well done to those people. And also I now work and help Sky do innovation. So as I say, this is the Sky Innovation Centre, 30,000 people at Sky. So how does every one of those people get to innovate? What does it look like? How do we take people from a problem to a solution? And how do we innovate? So big deal at Sky, that's why we do it. So there you go. First slide will be just a bit of a warning really about the hype cycle. A lot of the stuff that you hear about could be hype. Now Gartner are a research organisation. Every autumn or fall, if you're American, they come up with the hype cycle, and this calls out the, again, I'm going to say it again, the bullshit on the tech front, which you might hear about things. They all sound amazing, but really, are they hype or not? And that's what this curve's about. So a thing gets invented on the left-hand side. Everybody thinks it's amazing. Hype is massive. Everybody thinks it will solve everything. Then you realise it won't, and then it drops down to the trough of disillusionment. And then things start to go, it does do this though. That's kind of cool. And then it becomes productive, and it goes over onto the plateau of productivity, which is awesome. But you might be hearing of things like generative AI and decentralized identity and NFTs, for instance. You're thinking they're all cool and everything, but where should they be on this curve? If there's two things I'm going to call out, is some of the things on here might be useful to out-of-home advertising and media in general, but likewise there's a huge amount of stuff missing from the enlightenment and productivity. It does not mean there's nothing at the moment that's interesting. It just means that it's either already out there being used, or it's just basically hype. So watch out for the hype. Also watch out for the curve every, I think it's autumn or something like that. Definitely check it out, it's good. What I'm going to go through is some innovations that I've seen in the wider industry, and when I say wider I mean from almost anything that I think will be useful to out of home and, as I say, wider media industry. So this is what's interesting now, the things you should probably be looking at. Now the first one might sound like it's a bit futuristic, but I'll explain it and you'll kind of go, oh yeah, that's kind of useful. So this is NVIDIA's Omniverse. It's available now. You can do data modeling within this. So what you're seeing here is a real-time render of a very complicated virtual city. So they've rendered the trees, they've modeled the lamppost, you can put the weather, you can change the time of day. So if you are looking at something like automated driving and you want to see what the cameras see, what the LiDAR see, you can actually use this to get the data you want. You don't have to do it in the real world. Likewise, if you want to look like what some deer at the side of the road look like on a wet road just coming off a motorway, you can do that as well. Now this is also being used by mobile companies to look at where they should put 5G masts, to see how it bounces off all of these different surfaces. But likewise, if you're an out-of-home provider, you want to put a billboard somewhere, or you've got a billboard, it's great for doing things like modeling data, how many people see it, what does it look like at night, what does it look like in fog. If you've got the trees in front of it, what will they look like in 5 years time when you put a growth algorithm through those trees? And likewise, you've got all the traffic data live from the actual city. Well, why don't you just map that on there? What are people seeing right now? What does it look like when there's a lorry in the way? And likewise, if you're in a car, can you see it? Those sorts of things. So that is the Omniverse, and that's by NVIDIA. Definitely have a check that out. Now this is about regulation, which doesn't sound particularly interesting, but it will be coming to our world soon. So this is actually a draft policy that is being ratified at the moment through the EU, and this is really targeted at very big companies, and they have some stipulation of what is a big company, and they are the big ones, but this is the likes of Facebook and Microsoft and Twitter and Instagram and those sorts of things. And what this is basically saying is, if you do advertising, then you have to refrain from combining personal data for the purpose of delivering targeted or micro-targeted advertising, except if there is a clear, explicit and renewed informed consent. So it basically means you can't use third-party data to target people with adverts unless they've told you they really want it, they were really clear what that meant, and likewise they've also told you time and time again that they really like it happening to them. So this is going to clamp down pretty much on advertising online at the moment. In Europe, we're obviously ahead of the game on this, that's why it's from the EU, but this will clearly be coming to other digital marketing platforms as well, such as digital out of home. And also, if you're in a part of the world that currently is still using third-party data, then the rest of the world is probably also looking at how can you get the most out of your first-party data. So what data do you actually own? Because this is all about third-party data sharing. So if you're not gathering first-party data and getting consent from people to do that, you might want to think of that pretty soon. The QR code, who'd have thought in 2022 we'll still be talking about the QR code, but I've been a big fan for about 20 years, so I'm glad everybody else is catching up. Now what you're seeing in front of you is a giant QR code made out of drones in China. Now who wouldn't scan that? Of course you would. And in the top corner you've got Rick Astley dancing away. Now every single frame of that QR code can be scanned and it will take you to the Rick Astley video on the YouTube. And likewise, you might have seen a QR code on the Super Bowl ads just bouncing around like a screensaver. They're intriguing, they're a little bit interesting, you're never quite sure what you're going to get, and they've got that little endorphin rush, so they're really good. Now the negative of a QR code is that you don't quite know where they're going to go. There's no guarantee that they're going to go where you think they're going to go. So you have to be a little careful when you scan them. If you saw these on something like a parking meter that says scan me to top up your meter, you might be going to somewhere that's stealing $5 off you or £5 off you. You don't really know. However, billboards, you can't put a QR code on a billboard without some sort of legitimacy, some sort of proof, so therefore billboards are a great place for them. They also allow you to go from that sort of printed or static media to a digital world and take on, maybe show a video or take a link home with you to go and carry on the journey, and in which case the attribution can come with you. The QR code can give you a small little code, that code can be attributed to a sale. QR codes. That's where innovation is. Now, trust and transparency are not necessarily the same thing, but as you're seeing from VW here, they've actually installed somebody as a supply chain basic auditor. So what they've done is, clearly it's of their own making because of Dieselgate. They want to be totally transparent with their vehicles, their electric vehicles. So RCS Global are putting all of the supply chain logistics on a blockchain. It doesn't have to be on a blockchain, by the way, it just has to be available to other people, but it's catchy, I guess. However, what's going on here is they're saying, well, where is the metal coming from? Where's the paint coming from? Where's the glass coming from? How was the rubber produced in the tyres? What are the fluids or the liquids in the engine? What are they and where did they come from? So anybody who's buying this car can actually look that up. Likewise, anybody during the logistics chain can see where the things are, where they're going to next, and what the state of progress is. Yeah, clearly we've heard quite a lot in the conference so far about sustainability and the ecological friendliness of new formats, and this is obviously playing to that. Now, public are asking for this more and more and more, and just as I said at the beginning, transparency is not the same as trust. You can have brands that are implicitly trusted, they don't have to be transparent, but there are certain brands that want to be trusted that need to be transparent first. VW are almost a special case, is they had trust, they lost it, now they need to be transparent again. So just don't get caught in thinking transparency and trust are the same thing. You're aiming for trust through transparency. Next, these are the things that are come at you real soon. So this is something we're using at Sky and also at Comcast and NBC Universal. Lots of broadcast and the movie studios use it. This is a real-time render engine. This is called Unreal 5. This is the latest version. Now what this is a games engine, but it can be used for creating anything, obviously. All of these things are real-time rendered. So this, for instance, imagine if you needed to advertise IKEA lampshades, and at 3:30 on a Tuesday you decided you really need to sell the red lampshade, where you can just change it real time in the render engine. No more videos needed supplied, no more JPEGs, that sort of thing. You can just render it and it looks as beautiful as this. So if you've seen probably things like weather reports where they put in these kind of simulated hurricanes and all that sort of stuff, then it's probably using an Unreal 5 engine. So yeah, look into those. They are the future. This is probably the future of car paint. This was shown at CES, which is Consumer Electronics Show, at Vegas earlier on in the year. This is BMW, and they did tease this before Christmas, and they said they were going to have color changing paint, and they did. So as you can see, each panel is independently changeable. Therefore, you can run adverts on this. Of course you can. Now, why this is doubly interesting is this is actually using e-ink. So this is the same as a Kindle e-reader. Now, the reason a Kindle e-reader lasts for so long is the e-ink, as soon as you've changed the design, you can remove the power and it stays like that. So you don't have to keep powering it, unlike LEDs or organic LEDs or anything like that, or LCD screens. So you could park this in your car park at work. You could then change the design for something that you might want to advertise, and then you can walk away and it will take no power. Likewise, these cars are full of technology, therefore they've got cameras all the way around them. So Teslas, for instance, have got cameras all the way around. They can tell if anybody's tampering with your car, and you can therefore know whether anybody's looking at your car. So you also get a really good review at the end of the day whether anybody looked at it, and you can attribute sales to that. There you go. So who knows? E-ink is also really interesting for internal billboards anyway, super low power, and we're also seeing full color e-ink screens coming out as well, so it might be really good for indoor displays. Generative creative on demand is a really big thing. We've just seen Google actually announce, well, pretty much last week as well, their version of this. Now this is DALL-E 2, obviously it's a play on DALL-E and WALL-E probably as well. Now what it does is it generates its own images. Now it can do this on demand, and it can do this almost infinitely. So koalas on bikes, how many do you want? It takes about 10 seconds to do this. You can also say, give me the Mona Lisa, but give her a mohawk. It will do that for you as well. The ones on the right hand side, just to call them out, just call that one of them. What about teddy bears mixing sparkling chemicals as mad scientists in a steampunk style, in quotes? And that's what it generates. No human has been involved in that image, and that's what it generates. It takes about 10 seconds apparently to do that. All the ones along the bottom have been generated. If you want an astronaut on a horse or a fox in an impressionist style with a sun set in the background, it will give you them. So if your product can be created by one of these things, show me Coca-Cola on a beach in a sunset with a camel. It will do that. Show me Coca-Cola in a mountainside with ice and whatever, you know, some buffalo. Great, it will do that for you. Whatever you want. Show me Coca-Cola in space. It will do that. So this might just be a case of having this installed on your billboards in the future, and you just really just give it the text phrase, because what it's doing is it's actually turning contextual text into the image, so it can understand the context of things. So it's very clever. It's also super scary, but this is probably, if you're a designer right now, you probably need to be looking at this and working how you're going to work with it, rather than is it going to take over your world. Virtual worlds. So I'm not going to say the M word because it's not really a thing. I'll say it, go on the metaverse. It's all about having interconnected, interoperable worlds, whereas at the moment what we're seeing is a bunch of virtual worlds that you can explore and experience. So that's kind of what we're seeing. So new virtual worlds are now starting to create new media owners. So what you're seeing here, you've got AdMix, and you've also got somebody like NFT Plazas, which is in the top left. What you can do is you can have models of billboards, or it's almost like experiential places where you can run adverts. They can run adverts for you. If you own some land in a digital world, you can drop one of these things on. You can then run the adverts on it. They will then give you a report, and you can earn money from them as well. That's what AdMix will do. So obviously AdMix have worked with Ocean Outdoors, you can see in the bottom corner. However, what this is now doing is it's creating media owners in a different format. So if you go to one of these places, you can traffic the ad, you can say what frequency you want, you can say what ads you want, you can cap them, you can do all the things you can currently do in media buying with DSPs and all that sort of stuff. It's replicated. So if you're doing that in the real world with current billboards, then you actually should probably be looking at powering the next virtual worlds and what they do for advertising. However, what I would say is it's a little bit crude at the moment. Is this really the best way to advertise in a completely virtual, unrestricted space? I would probably say if I wanted to sell jeans, I'd probably want a little unicorn wearing jeans to go running up to you, with rainbows all the way around it, telling you how awesome the jeans are, and then showing you on a model of yourself. So not necessarily squares with adverts on are the way to go in the metaverse. Need to think a little bit more creatively about that one. And now, talking about the future, let's talk about the things that you really should be keeping an eye on, but don't lose sleep about too much. So this is about taking billboards from their static location and taking the message where it needs to go. We saw some really early versions of this with drones with bits of paper underneath them and things like that. And this is basically the new version of an aeroplane with a flag behind it. But what you're seeing in the left-hand side, this is one of those kind of robot cyber killer dogs with a speaker to it. But what a perfect way to then tell people to stay inside because of COVID. It's a perfect dystopian method of doing that. And what you're then seeing on the right-hand side is robo ads. Essentially, this will find where the message needs to go. It's got a banner on each side. You can interact with it. It's got cameras. It's got all sorts of stuff. So, making advertising mobile and taking the message where it needs to go. Clearly, we've got taxis that do this and taxi tops, but this is taking those bigger billboards to a new level. New types of technology, and this is a perovskite LED, which basically means it's actually flexible. Now, it's not flexible in the current sense. Flexible LEDs at the moment are on a flexible substrate, or essentially a rubber panel. And as you pull it apart, then the pixels get further and further apart because the pixels don't stretch, but the rubber does. Whereas with these ones, the actual pixels stretch themselves. So you can have a screen that can be wrapped around very organic shapes, around clothing, or around trees, or anything like that. What you're seeing in the right-hand side is a pair of sneakers or a pair of trainers with some sort of flexible screens on them. Now you can imagine you can then have personal adverts. Again, as I said on a previous slide, who's serving these ads? Who's giving you the location-specific ads that you could potentially earn money from as you walk around the city? But likewise, if you're working in sport, then if these are being worn by somebody on the basketball court or on a football pitch, for instance, and somebody is offside, their trainers or their shoes can go red. So they can be used for all sorts of things, but new technologies are coming which will give us different places to put screens that are maybe not as static as at the side of a road or in a shopping centre, that sort of thing. So we need to think a little bit further afield. Now also, how do you monetize your ads, or how do you attribute them as well? So buyable billboards via secure payment tokenization. Now if you've already used a phone, or if you bought anything using a credit card almost, you have already used tokenized payments. So if you've used an iPhone or Google Pay, for instance, when you actually tap your phone, it doesn't send your credit card information. It creates a sort of a very quick version of it. It only sends a sort of a virtualized version that doesn't actually contain your details. It sends that off, that gets kind of verified. It sends it back, says yes, you've got enough money to pay, send it through. So none of your details actually get sent. So if that little token can be given to other people without fear of you actually losing or sharing your details. So if you have, for instance, a billboard and you really wanted to buy something from it, what you can actually do is you can give your token to that screen, and essentially you've transferred your payment details to the screen, and it can send you back some information as well. So by putting payment details in tokens, what we're really looking for is somebody to step up and have what's called, I don't know, billboard pay. And if it shows it's got billboard pay, you can just tap your phone on it or walk up to it, and it will take your payment and give you the product. It will arrive in the post the next day, etc. So buyable billboards using secure payment tokenization is what that's about. Adyen is one of our big partners at Sky, they're payment partners. They've got a huge amount of information on their website. Let's go and check it out. And finally, we've got augmented out of home. Will be all around us, and it might be right now, you just don't know because you haven't got the glasses on right now. So this is Rift AR, and what you do in this one, it's got all the buzzwords in this one, but this is augmented reality using augmented reality glasses. And what you do is you buy an NFT. It could be any artwork, to be fair, but you go along to a physical location, you put that NFT in a physical location, and then when you put your glasses on, you can see all the virtual artwork that has been placed around you. If you take the glasses off, you cannot see it anymore. So it's quite interesting, again, who's buying this, who's placing it there, who's it being targeted to, and because everybody can potentially be shown a different version of this, you can micro-target it based on the data you know about them from clearly the first party data you have. What you're seeing on the right hand side is actually Snapchat Spectacles. There's a sort of a version 3 coming out. They actually look really funky. You saw the unboxing of them a couple of days ago. So this is them just showing that if you're just wearing what look like normal spectacles, this is what you'll be seeing. And you can do fitness, you can do all sorts of things. So the augmented world is coming to us. The out-of-home industry is already doing this, already serving these adverts, so we've got everything we need to actually get into this. But it will be happening around you. It might be happening where you're sat right now, who knows. There you go. You always need a good quote at the end of one, so clearly the future is so bright, I've got to wear shades. Timbuk 3 in 1986. Great quote. If you enjoyed that, then you can find more of it on YouTube. I do these kind of dinosaurs every week. So at Skylabs we compile a kind of what have we seen this week and what's interesting, so check that out. Go and check out sort of Dinosaur or Dinozoiks on YouTube. If you want to get in touch, there's my email. I'm also available on Twitter. Hopefully that was useful. Hopefully you got a bit of a flavour, and see you at the next one.